Hello, everyone, and welcome to our IELTS teacher training. In today's training, our main focus here is IELTS speaking part 3, and mainly focusing on fluency and coherence part 1. Now, before we begin with our session today, let us first have the overview of our training. So again, for our training here, we have 3 stages. So the first stage here, we have the knowledge acquisition. So we have to go delve deeper to four skills. We have speaking, writing task 1, task 2, listening and reading. And for stage 2, we're going to proceed to skills acquisition, that is test taking skills, how to teach, and certainly practice teaching. And finally, mastery. So this is where we have to learn how to make an effective assessment in writing and speaking. So today's session is knowledge acquisition, mainly focusing on speaking, speaking part 3, focusing on the criteria, fluency, and coherence, okay? So let us first understand IELTS speaking, have a quick review for the IELTS speaking. So again, for IELTS speaking, there are 3 parts, and the total time is roughly 11 to 13 minutes. So for speaking part 1, it's also called the interview. That's 3 to 5 minutes. The test, this part lasts for roughly 3 to 5 minutes, and there is no preparation time. For speaking part 2 is called individual long term. The test roughly lasts for 4 to 5 minutes, including preparation time. And finally, speaking part 3, it's also called two-way discussion, and these tests roughly last for 4 to 5 minutes, and there's no preparation time. So today's main focus here is IELTS speaking part 3. And to understand the IELTS speaking part 3, let's first understand here the criteria on how the candidate is awarded. So we have here fluency and coherence, FC, LR, lexical resource or vocabulary, GRA, grammatical range and accuracy, and PR or pronunciation. Now let's take a look at here at band 7 for each criteria. So for fluency and coherence, that the candidate understands the question or task, speaks at length, and the answer is logical and relevant. For lexical resource or vocabulary, the candidate must use wider range of vocabulary to discuss unfamiliar topics with flexibility and accuracy. And for GRA, or grammatical range and accuracy, the candidate uses combined simple and complex sentences or sentence structures with very few errors. And finally, for pronunciation, the candidate here must be generally understood, or in other words, he or she must have reduced local accent or without local accent, L1 accent. L1 means first language accent. So let's check here fluency and coherence, IELTS speaking part 3. So again, fluency and coherence is the first criteria. So if you check here, this is the first criteria in which the candidate gets an award, again. Now, there are 3 main things that we have to understand, or the candidate must understand to get a band score 7. First of all, we have here understand the question. Number 2, speaks at length. And number 3, the answer must be logical and relevant, okay? Now, let us first check here, understand the question. So in IELTS speaking part 3, there are 3 general types of questions, okay? So we have here giving reasons, questions that ask you to compare A and B, and questions that ask you to give the advantages and or disadvantages. So these are the 3 main types of questions. Now, the reason why we need to understand each type of question, well, let's have an example first. So what are these types of questions? First, we have here advantages. The first question number one here asks you about the advantages or the benefits. And question number two asks you to give reasons. And question number three asks you to compare two things. Now, this is again the criteria number one for fluency and coherence, which is to understand the question or the task. The next one is speaks at length. So how uh, how can a candidate speak at length? Now, in here, what the candidate must do is to use the structure here for speaking. So we have here, or for structure for answering the question. So we have here P-R-E-E. So I call this one as P-R-E-E, or paraphrase. That's for E, a P, and then reason or point. That's for R. E, explain, and example. Okay. So we have here, for example, the question is, do you think men and women view technology differently? All right, so again, the candidate here begins with paraphrasing the question, then gives the point, reason or point, explain that reason or point, and give an example. So that's how we have here structure. We have here the use of complex sentences. So that's how the candidate speaks at length. Okay, so that is a second criteria for speaking part three. Okay. Now, the third criteria here is, again, for speaking at length, the main criteria here is to paraphrase. Now, when we say paraphrase, that means using synonyms or changing the word function. Then, followed by giving reason or point, explain that reason or point and give an example. Now, the example here, there must be a warning here. So the example here is optional. What is most important here is the explanation, to give an explanation to the point or reason. And for using the examples, it is essential to use facts or generally observed experiences. So that means personal experiences shouldn't be used. Now, the candidate here mustn't say, for example, from my experience or in my family or during that time I had this one and that. So that is a kind of example that the candidate must not use. Okay. So that's for, again, the first structure for speaking at length is paraphrasing. So when we paraphrase, that means we have to use synonyms or change the function of the word. Another criteria for vocabulary is the use of descriptive words. That means the use of adjectives and adverbs. And the third criteria for vocabulary is the accurate use of topic vocabulary. All right. So paraphrasing. Again, for paraphrasing, we have two things to consider, or two things to do, two ways to paraphrase. One is using synonyms, and the other one is changing the word function. Okay. Now here's an example question here. Why do people have a very strong bond with their hometown? So the type of question here is giving reasons. And question number two, in what ways can people improve their hometown? The type of question here is also giving reasons. Okay. Now here's a model answer where we check here how the candidate paraphrase the question. So we have here, for example, why do people have a very strong bond with their hometown? So we have it in my view. I mean, that means your point or reason, have a deep emotional connection. So we have your strong bond, all right? So the candidate here uses synonyms, all right? And hometown, we can say with a place or with their place, all right? Question number two, in what ways can people improve their hometown? So for paraphrasing here, we have contribute to the betterment of their birthplace, okay? So hometown, all right? And betterment, that's synonym for the word improve. Residence, okay, synonym for people in their hometown. Okay. So again, the first criteria for speaking at length is P, which stands for paraphrasing or paraphrase. And to paraphrase means we have to use synonyms or change the word function. Okay. Another way to one reason why we have to understand the type of questions. So again, um, for fluency, the first criteria there is to understand the question or the task. And as we have mentioned earlier, there are three types of questions. Okay, so there is this giving reasons, comparing things, and giving advantages and disadvantages. Now, the main reason why we have to understand the question is that when we understand the question, it is easier for the candidate to use here transition words or cohesive devices or linking devices. So, for example, if the question is asking you to give reasons, then you can use here, or the candidate can use here, transitional words and phrases to give reasons. So we have here, for example, one major reason, parent reason, the primary reason to this. There are several reasons to this, etc., etc. Okay. Okay, so we can continue our next session, which is also IELTS speaking part 3, and that is part 2. So we can go deeper to fluency and coherence, vocab, grammar. Okay, so that's all for today's meeting. Thank you and have a good day.